4 days was like it was the beta of Dupol. And we went from like idea to product. It was basic, but it was a product in 4 days. From there, we started talking to people. We were trying to sell them creative work. They asked what else you got going on. We told them about Dupol. And almost everyone just wanted to use Dupol rather than hire us for creative work. So we just started selling that. And I firmly remember, this is a kind of an entrepreneurship story. I firmly remember standing in a pitch meeting with a university who wanted to they just seemed to have almost infinite budget to recover their reputation after a public scandal. And we're standing there talking about Dupol, and the guy goes, "Hey, I want that, because that'll really help us to kind of make everyone feel like they've got a voice. How much is it?" And me and one of my co-founders looked at each other and we were like, "Just give us a minute," because we had no idea, because no one had ever asked us what the price was before. And we literally went what do you call it? Shark Tank. We literally walked off to the back of the room, had a quick conversation and went, "Oh, it's probably it's probably a $25K a year for a license." And we said, "Hey, it's $25K a year." And he went, "Yep, great. Send me the contract and we'll get going." And that was like the start of a roller coaster for us. And that level of preparation, hey, it didn't stop there, It very much continued on that for years to come.
Oh my gosh. So 25K is your first deal. You're like, "Holy shit, we did it." And then from there on was 3.5 years of building this thing.
Yeah. Well, it turns out that just because someone says they'll pay you 25K doesn't mean they will. So we leave the meeting. We basically are like, "Hey, we're going to have to go all in on this. This is clearly way more successful than what we're currently doing. If we can just pitch this and someone will give us a good amount of money. Let's go raise some money and we'll basically go all in on this." So we start raising money. We go through what is at the time feels like a massive due diligence process for a tiny amount of money. And it turns out it can't have been that diligent, because halfway through the investment process, the company who we'd sold this contract to basically "There's no way we're paying 25K for this. We'll pay you max 5. And we were just "Yeah, why not?" We would have taken any money. And the investors just did not care. And they still gave us the money.
How much did you raise?
It was only a small amount. It was $300K. For us at the time, it felt genuinely life-changing, because it was someone's just given us $300K. I've never had that much money in my bank account. And for a product with no sales, that's great.
For an idea,
it was exactly no sales, no customers, no real users. And they gave us this money and said "Okay, you got to go all in." So all of us quit everything else we were doing, all of our different projects, and went, basically, this is all we're going to do now for the next X number of years. And the goal was sell it for a heap of money and then, do whatever. Spoiler alert, that was not the reality.
Well, it took 3.5 years. It did get acquired. So I don't know if you're allowed to say how much it got acquired for.
Well, the story there, and I don't know this, I feel like this is relevant for this conversation actually. In about 2020, I guess, when COVID started, we had lost one of our co-founders. He had moved on. He didn't die.
Okay. I was like, "Oh shit."
We're still best friends.
So that took a turn.
But he was gone. It was a bit bitter. We kind of all fell out a little bit in that moment. My other co-founder was going through some big life stuff. And we had this contract diligence coming through again. We had this user who was a public company. They own all of the kind of regional newspapers in the UK. So they're a big public company in the UK. And they had been kind of doing a trial run of Dupol for using for voting during big events and things like that, kind of, sports matches and stuff like that. And we were about to close our biggest ever deal with them. It would have given us runway for a whole year. And then COVID hit and they got rid of 30% of their workforce literally overnight. It was awful. We lost that contract. And it was oh my gosh, are we going to go out of business here? Because it wasn't clear at that time how long this would last and all that kind of stuff. And I just remember going well, we're going to have to keep on trying to close this deal. And they asked us if they could use the product for one more kind of trial. We just sort of went, well, we're going to lose it anyway. We may as well. So they wanted to do a survey where they would embed our survey, basically our widget, on all of the front pages of all of their newspapers. And they wanted to do a survey about like attitudes to lockdown in the UK. We were like, that's great. That's going to be the thing that's going to send us over the edge. If we didn't get a contract or an agreement or anything in place to do this, we just like went ham. And we went from, I think, 1.6 million all-time votes to 16 million in 4 days. And at first it was like, oh my gosh, this is going to be the thing that gets us acquired. This company is going to buy us. And that was generally the conversation, or it felt like the conversation anyway. And then they said like, hey guys, the platform keeps crashing. And it turns out, like, if you slam servers with that much traffic and that much information and you make that many database requests, it absolutely melts any kind of server if you're not very much prepared for that. And we weren't. And so we had like days of just horrific. Anytime somebody tried to access their results, the platform crashed for everyone. We just brought down all the servers. It was the most nightmarish 4 days probably of my life in the end. We burnt through, because of cloud server bills and all of the associated things like intercom, like everything. I think we're using like Amplitude or something at the segment, like all of these kind of basic software tech stack tools. We burnt through like all of our money.
Because I'll pay for use or whatever.
Right, exactly. And if you massively, if you blitz that, it's going to burn through cash. So after that, I was like, oh my gosh, I think I'm done here.